So the game continues. White plays queen g3. I like this move, however. I think this move's quite good because it stops black from moving his bishop on f8 in a fast way. Queen c7, developing the queenside. Can't be too bad. And now a3, another good move. I like a3 because it gives an escape square for the bishop on c4. I think it's important to make sure that bishop, white tries to retain that bishop if they can, because it's white's best attacking piece. h5, this is a radical move. This move is not really understandable, to be honest. It seems to be a bit too aggressive. It cedes the g5 square. It's debatable that, you know, even if it gets to h4, that you even want to move the queen from g3. But it is sort of understandable that it gives the h7 square for a piece, possibly even the h6 square for a piece, maybe a knight, and it is maybe trying to free up the king side, which is under a pressure here a little bit. So it's now white's turn, and sure enough the bishop goes to g5. Then this is a good move because it's not so easy to push this knight away. You know, like f6 seems one idea. If you try and push with f6, if you push the bishop away, you're just going to weaken this diagonal even further. So it's going to be even more problems for black. So it's not so clear that these moves are that great. But bishop g5 seems like a good move. Knight f6 I think makes sense too. Now at least you can bring out your bishop, and the bishop actually stops the white queen from attacking the g7 square. So I think this is a pretty reasonable move by black. f5, good move. White gains space on the king side and gets prepared to play the break f4 to f5, possibly even e4 to e5 in the right circumstance, but mainly f4 to f5, and gain some space, which I think is a pretty good idea. b5, a good move. The bishop falls back to a2, and now black really goes for it with b4. I like this idea. The idea being you're attacking the knight, obviously, and you're also attacking the a3 pawn, which shouldn't be underestimated. White plays knight d1. The problem with a takes b4, of course, is that if you play a takes b4, you're actually making it easier for black to attack with queen c2, dropping a pawn, and black would have had a pretty successful move there. So knight d1 makes a bit of sense, but now this a3 pawn will always be weak if white ever decides to attack it. Knight h7 I don't like, however. I think black had many better alternatives. The main one being either bishop takes a3 or just the logical bishop e7, just developing a piece. And I think this is a good position. This is fine for black. You know, black's got their pieces developed. They're getting ready to get their rooks into the game, and I don't see how black's any worse in this position. But knight h7 is just too much. Knight h7 is just, you know, it's putting a knight on a bad square. Okay, albeit you're attacking the bishop and you're going to put the bishop on a bad square, but you can't attack the bishop really after that. So the knight doesn't really belong on h7, right? White's not going to give up the bishop for the knight. Let's see what happened. Moulthun keeps at c, so good move. And now g6, which is ugly to say the least. The problem with g6 is now the black king gets considerably weaker. The dark squares around the king here are very weak, and it's not clear that this isn't going to be opened up anyway. In fact, Moulthun's next move is just a great move, f5. This is a fantastic pawn sacrifice. As Moulthun once said, pawn sacrifices are the hardest sacrifices because they invest the least material, meaning that they're the most difficult to judge. And often you have to be intuitive, and we have to figure out what is white getting in with this pawn sacrifice. Well, the first thing is the black can't allow you to chop twice here. You know, pawn takes, queen takes, check is just disaster. So black has to meet the pawn sacrifice in some manner. How they're going to meet it, I'm not sure. They might defend the square. But let's look and see what happens if they played e takes f5. So e takes f5, take, bishop takes. And it looks like for the moment that black's got an extra pawn, but these positions are very, very hard to play for the black players. I've played them myself a lot. And you know, once that pawn gets sacrificed on f5, even if white's down a pawn, they often have enough comp to get through. And you can see that from the line I'm showing you with bishop here dominating, knight e3, suddenly, you know, the position is not so good for black. There's a huge attack, plus 3.95 on the engine. Very good pawn sacrifice. Taking with a G pawn doesn't fare much better. Again, same sort of stuff. Alright. It's not easy for black to make use of that extra pawn, and their king position's getting opened up like a can opener. You know, very, very dangerous attack. So let's look at the move that was played in the game. By the way, g5, I wanted to see g5 if it was any good, and it turns out that it's not good, because after this move, rook g8, they have the fantastic bishop d8. You know, just a beautiful move. Rook takes, bishop takes queen. Now your rook's on pre, the bishop's got in behind, this pawn's going to be under threat. You know, you're threatening to take here, you're threatening to take on an e6, and all sorts of trouble for black. So, but that's a pretty tricky reply. You know, I was thinking h4 might be the answer there, but you know, the move that they played was even better.